Now we're moving to Europe. Noah, you are up.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks so much for having me. All
Thanks
right,
for
thank you.
joining us.
Of course, Julie. All right, thank you, Peter, so much, and congratulations on this anniversary. I'm Noah Hyams. I'm the founder of VEGPRENEUR. We are a global community of entrepreneurs and investors building a sustainable plant-based future. And I'm here today to talk a little bit about opportunities in the plant-based space. So first off, a little bit more about us. VEGPRENEUR has four parts to it. First off, we're a community. So if anybody here is interested in connecting with entrepreneurs or investors in the space, we have a Facebook community. I welcome you to join. We also produce content. We have founders and investors that we highlight on our blog every week. So if that's you, we'd love to get your name out there so the community can approach you. We've got events and summits that we host where we help connect entrepreneurs and investors to each other. And then we also create resources. So if you're looking to invest your money in this space, we publish a monthly list of startups that are raising funds that you might be interested in investing in or working with. So I want to start this conversation off with the question, why plants? And to really get to the core of that is, they use less water, less land, and they create a lot less emissions and waste. And to really put this in perspective, today worldwide, we farm about 70 billion plus animals. I think in the United States, we're killing about 25 million animals a day. This doesn't include a lot of the sea animals that are also being caught as bycatch and are also part of this process. Animals are inherently very inefficient. So the way to think about this is for every 9 energy calories that we're putting into an animal, we're only getting about a one food calorie back. So that's about an 11% conversion rate. So in itself, animal farming, animal agriculture is inefficient and it needs to change because we are facing a climate crisis that the animal agriculture industry is directly contributing to. According to the UN, animal agriculture is one of the top 2 or 3 most significant contributors to serious environmental problems. It's also one of the leading reasons for deforestation, to hint on a previous presentation I was given. And it's also responsible for, about 15% of greenhouse gases, which is more than the transportation sector. So to make this a little bit more personal, 1 pound of cheese, dairy cheese, milk cheese from a cow requires more water than you showering daily for a month. So just so everyone listening can kind of put that in perspective for themselves. I want to talk also a little bit more about how much food they deliver for us. So crops make up about 23% of the world's agricultural land, but they provide us with about 83% of the caloric supply worldwide. So again, inefficiency is just built in. We're getting a lot more use out of plants than we are out of animals. And as we are dealing with a global pandemic, it's safe to say that a plant-based food system will enable us to basically avoid any zoonotic diseases, which are diseases that jump over from animals to us. And I think a lot of us would be very happy if that weren't the case anymore. So that's the case for why plants. Now I want to talk about why we're seeing this explosion in vegan plant-based products all around the world. Right now, about 42% of the world is flexitarian, about 6% is vegetarian, 4% is vegan. And because you're seeing these trends, you're seeing more demand. So whilst back in the day, products were created specifically for vegans or vegetarians, Gen Z primarily now is pushing forward this demand for alternative foods and materials, which we'll talk about a little bit later, that are more sustainably created and also have less of an impact on our planet and animals. To give you a little bit more insight here about Gen Z, when we're talking about investing, 80% of Gen Z factors ESG into their investing decisions. So you're seeing a whole new breed of investor here as well, which is way more aligned with their values of saving the planet and avoiding an environmental catastrophe. So 54% of that generation are now avoiding meat and animal-based products, while only about 34% of baby boomers are doing the same. So Gen Z is definitely roaring ahead here and then bringing these changes about, which you've probably been noticing. I have a longer presentation too, where I kind of show the different companies in this space and talk about what's happening. But again, if you're interested in learning more, you can always head to VEGPRENEUR.org. So I wanted to focus a little bit on food and bev, because I think that's very directly linked to the conversations today. Let's talk a little bit about the plant-based sector. Plant-based food sales in the US have accelerated twice as fast as animal meat sales during the pandemic. Again, this is because a lot of people are recognizing the impact that animal agriculture is having on our planet and how it's affecting our everyday lives. A lot of you might be familiar with Impossible Foods. They're the biggest rival to Beyond Meat, which is a public company. And 92% of Impossible Burger sales come directly at the expense of animal meat products. So you're seeing direct competition, especially when those products are also put next to animal-derived products in stores, that they're actually able to compete. And as the price and the taste and the nutrients become better, and on that note, Beyond Meat actually today, just a couple hours ago, announced a new version of their burger, which has even less fat and is identical to meat in terms of the nutrient profile. So that's really exciting. Also from our friends over at GFI, they reported a record of $930 million invested into alternative proteins during Q1 of 2020 alone. So the pandemic didn't slow that down at all. Let me give you a little bit more about the demand for, got it, sorry. Here we go. The global vegan cheese. And I know I've been talking a lot about plant-based cheese, even though that's maybe not the focus today, but that is expected to reach $2.5 billion by the end of 2020. It's now even more. So we're just seeing explosive growth. The plant-based food category has grown almost 8 times the rate of total food over the past 2 years. So it's just explosive. And a lot of media will make this out to be some kind of fad or something young people are doing, but it's a consumer shift because new product introductions with a vegan claim accounted for about 14% of meat launches in the first 9 months of 2018, and that's up from 6% in 2013. So if you're looking at this data, you're seeing a very clear path for where things are going, and definitely something I always get people excited about getting involved in, because there's so much to gain here. I also want to talk a little bit about the opportunities right now. You might have noticed when you go grocery shopping that a lot of the plant-based meats are sort of in the same kind of cuts. You've got your nuggets, burgers, obviously, a lot of QSRs are serving that. Burger King just announced in the UK that they're going to be announcing a vegan chicken burger in addition to their regular beef burgers. So there's an opportunity there for more different cuts of meat. And there's a few startups working on that, which are doing really exciting work to get even more people excited about the plant-based alternatives that are available. You'll also see that this year was sort of deemed kind of the year of plant-based seafood, driven, very much by documentaries. If you haven't seen it, Seaspiracy kind of rocked the world. It's in the top 10 of Netflix global charts, and it's about just the environmental damage being done by seafood, the seafood industry overall. So right now, seafood up until now has pretty much been like absent from the entire plant-based meat market, but now it's accelerating, and you've got a few cool companies that are getting into the space. There's one particularly that I'm excited about. They're called Akua, and they're creating burgers from kelp, which is an algae, which is super exciting because it doesn't require any water to farm because you're farming it in water, and it's also a complete protein. So it's very protein dense as well. So that's super exciting to see as well. And then right now, for people getting into this space, there's about an $11 billion opportunity for plant-based meat to reach market share parity with plant-based milk in US retail alone. And in US retail, you'll see that the plant-based milks have kind of captured the majority of the plant-based market, and they're kind of leading, but meat is coming strong, and then eggs, which is another super exciting space. There's a company called Just that has been really accelerating their growth during the pandemic and has been releasing their plant-based eggs internationally now as well. I also want to talk a little bit about fashion, because that does also tie in with the plant-based entrepreneurship space. We have some really exciting developments happening right now where big brands like Adidas and Hermes are working with companies like Bolt Threads to use mushrooms to create animal-like leather out of mushrooms, which are way more they are more sustainable and they don't involve animal agriculture. Just to give you some facts on the fashion part of what's happening, 25% of the world's carbon budget will be taken up by the fashion industry alone by 2050 if no changes are made. And about 55% of consumers want to purchase leather alternatives because of leather's impact on animals and the environment. So again, you're seeing a major drive also by Gen Z looking to have their impact on the planet be a little bit more sustainable than we've had up until now. I'm very excited about the work that material innovation is doing on this space. If you go to their website, you can go to their website, Material Innovation Initiative, and learn a lot more about all the great things that are happening in the fashion space and get involved. I can now talk a little bit about the future and what we're looking at and how people can get involved. I think packaging is going to play a major role. There's a new company that spoke at our summit. They have a plant-based snack where the wrapper is biodegradable, and there's actually videos of the founders eating those wrappers on TikTok. So thinking about, how can we better package the foods and goods that we're shipping. There's another exciting company that is in multiple markets at once. They're called Ecovative. They're making not only leather with mushrooms, not only packaging, but even bacon from mycelium. I personally believe that mycelium and mushrooms are very underrepresented and can have a tremendous impact on our planet, and will be more and more relevant as more money flows into the space. We also see exciting developments like the UK's second largest supermarket chain, Sainsbury, closed its meat and fish counters in its stores. You're seeing big plant-based dairy companies like Califia in China, where they're seeing their plant-based milk demand soaring by 800%. You're seeing in Africa and South Africa, you're seeing Uber Eats is seeing a sharp uptake of vegan orders, specifically during the pandemic. And then you also see that, according to BCG, the alternative protein market is going to reach at least $290 billion by 2035. So I think that's just, again, showing how much is happening in this space and how much more money and how many more brilliant minds we need to accelerate this work. I think we've seen that, again, as I said earlier, we started off with, plant-based milk, soy milk, almond milk, oat milk. There are many more. Choose your favorite. Dunkin' Donuts just released coconut milk, as far as I know, nationally this week. Then we came with burgers. Everything was burgers. I would say that was kind of in 2019 for the most part, when Beyond Meat had the best IPO since 2000. And then now what we're looking at more is, pork and beef alternatives. We're looking at Mexican foods, pizza toppings, meatball subs, chicken nuggets have become huge. There's a company called Nugs with 2 Gs. They're doing some really exciting work with chicken nuggets and getting that into the mainstream. So, and now I think finally we're coming to the eggs, the cheeses, and the seafood, which is really one of those last major hurdles, I would argue, for people to accept plant-based foods and products into their life. And there are optimists out there who say that, by 2040, we're going to be seeing alternative proteins account for about 60% of the global meat market. So if we can, if that happens, we'll be in much better shape than we are today. I'm happy to answer any questions and also, share any resources that will help anybody interested in this space to get involved. At VEGPRENEUR, again, we publish a list of startups that are raising funds. We also feature founders and investors. So if you go over to vegpreneur.org and shoot me an email, we're happy to connect you and get you into the space.
Wow, that is just so cool. I love the way, Noah, that you really are focusing on the future and all of these solutions. I'm curious though, what's the one big challenge or opportunity that you think we really need to look at in the next 3 to 5 years that maybe has been overlooked so far?
Yeah, I personally think it's seafood. I think that's kind of been, because seafood is perceived by most as being healthy, which is kind of difficult to argue given that there is more plastic in the ocean than there are stars in the Milky Way right now. So I think that's I don't think anybody's running around saying that red meat is healthy anymore. I think we've conquered that. And I think the chicken alternatives are getting there. There's a company called Daring, which makes an incredible plant-based chicken. But I think seafood is that last. It's also more difficult to produce because you're kind of mimicking a sea animal, which is different than a mammal.
Right, right. I had asked this question of Flavio, but I'm curious for you as well. Can you give us, we just have a couple minutes left, but could you give us an example of one of your entrepreneurs that you feel like is a great success story uh, in terms of investment in sustainability and also an economic return?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a few that I can mention, but there's one that we've kind of seen their entire lifespan up until this point. There is a company called Please Cheese, Pleese, and they pitched at our first ever pitch competition that we hosted in New York City, and they kind of had like their version 1.0 there. One of the judges on that panel saw them. They were later admitted to Big Idea Ventures, which is an accelerator in Singapore and in New York City. They did the one in New York City. They were accepted into there, and now they have their products in pizzerias in New York City, which you can imagine is a quite a competitive space to be in. And we very much want them to lead the charge with a great product to make a good first impression. There are too many people out there who say they won't try another vegan product if they had a bad experience with one. So I always say, eat an apple, that's vegan too. But yeah, so they're leading the charge, and it's really exciting to see that the demand has just skyrocketed for them. Again, they're still early. I don't know about their financials, but I'm super excited to see how their cheese has kind of gone a little bit mainstream in New York.
And to close us out, I'm curious about the companies that you are mostly associated with. Are you looking at specifically organic and soil regenerative approaches, or are you, pretty flexible in terms of how these entrepreneurs are producing their plant-based solutions?
Yeah, for sure. And that's definitely something we push, and something that we're educating ourselves on as well, because I think that's something that's kind of overlooked, and there's sometimes trade-offs, like it's plant-based, but this is being unsustainably farmed. So we very much, and that's why we kind of talk about sustainability as well. We push that as well because we think that the best would be to have a sustainable plant-based world. So we definitely think that that's something the entrepreneurs and the investors should keep in mind. Might as well solve multiple problems at once and not have to go back in a few years and undo some of the errors that we're making now.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Really, really interesting. I will also put a shout out for a Sea Legacy. It was just, oh my gosh, upsetting but informational. So thank you for joining us. Really, really appreciate it.